welcome to It's Football Time in the Bluegrass Fantasy Football Report. I'm your host, the Commissioner. Wow, what a week of football. Let's get started with America's Game of the Week. Kentucky Headhunters was on another level this week, putting up the highest score this season. To get past the Silverbacks, 239 to 206. The wide receivers on the Silverbacks collectively had their best week of the season with 51 points. These two teams are tied for fourth place with a 4-3 record. But it doesn't tell the whole story, as the Kentucky Headhunters has a clear points lead. These two teams tied for fourth place with a 4-3 record, but it doesn't tell the whole story, as the Kentucky Headhunters had a clear points lead with 1,496 to 1,339. Kentucky Headhunters snapped their three-game losing streak with a win. Next game was between Team Betty and Doomsday, and Betty pulled out a shocking victory to beat Doomsday 210 to 197, led by Malcolm Smith with 31 points, as Danny Woodhead, who was traded for by Betty, scored 30 points against their projected 15 points, topping his projection by 98%. Depth was a factor. Even though Doomsday lost, they had two players score higher than the leading scorer for Betty. This must be how Jay Leno feels with a garage full of high-performance cars. Doomsday got a combination of 86 points from their running backs, their highest combined scoring output from the running back position this season. But unfortunately, Doomsday saw their three-game win streak come to an end. The 13-point margin of victory was the smallest in the league this week. It was a season-low point total for Doomsday, and this is the fifth win in a row for Betty. Holy Kleenex, Batman! It was right under their nose and they blew it. Team Walter lost to Deep Bombers. It was the biggest loss of the season for Team Walter, and this win snapped a 6-game losing streak for Deep Bombers. Deep Bombers came back from a 29-point deficit on Monday night to beat Team Walter 172 to 132, despite getting just the 9th highest point total in the league this week. Now, we won't judge Deep Bomber if he wants to bow down to Carson Palmer, because he was ranked 8th in the league in scoring with 36 points last week, and Luke Ketchie with a season high of 21 points, and J.J. Watt is getting 22 points. Defense wins championships, and in this case, defense won for Deep Bombers in Week 7 matchup. A lot of buzz around the league about Raging Falcoholics after their performance in Week 7. They have passed the third highest score this season to take down Sunday Survivors 262 to 209. Even Pat Benatar would have been proud of how these two teams hit each other with their best shot. Both sides met their expectations, but Raging Falcoholics put up 26% more points than they're projected to earn the win. Leading Sunday Survivors, Andrew Luck with 46 points and Darren McFadden with 37, both ranked highly overall this week. Raging Falcoholics remain in 6th place, while Sunday Survivors stays down in 8th place. Flip the Hooey has to like where his team is at after putting up the 2nd highest point total in the league this week to beat the Horsemen 250 to 187. Still undefeated at this point, Flip the Hooey is piecing together another great season. Leading Horsemen, Matthew Stafford with 34 points and Marshawn Lynch with 31 points, both ranked high overall this week. Flip the Hooey remains in 1st place, while Horsemen stays down in 9th place. Now for Week 8 predictions. 3rd-ranked Betty will be taking on 4th-ranked Kentucky Headhunters, and this should be the game to watch out for this week. Both teams are top 5, and I look for Forsett for Team Betty to have a big week, as well as Martin, who is going against Atlanta and plays for Headhunters, to have a big week too. I don't think Danny Woodhead will put up 30 points against Baltimore like he did against Oakland, but will probably hit his projections with 14 points. But I have to give the win to the Headhunters, who will have Abdullah from the Lions starting at the flex position, where Betty has 3rd-string Polk from Houston starting, and leaving Betty to say, Houston, we have a problem. 7th-ranked team Walter will play against 2nd-place Doomsday. And man, Team Walter cannot catch a break in this tough matchup he has played recently. The tough matchups he's played recently. Doomsday already has 50 more projected points than Team Walter. Biggest advice for Team Walter? Drastic times call for drastic measures. Start trading and see if someone will bite. Doomsday should have no problem winning this week. With Bell against Cincy and Gurley against San Fran, they should put up big numbers. Oh, and let's not forget about the St. Louis defense against San Francisco, who will probably put up the biggest points for Team Doomsday this week. Next game is the Sunday Survivors versus Deep Bombers. This will be a close matchup. Deep Bombers is starting to come on, but they have an uphill battle to fight to make the right decisions and positioning their players on the roster. If Bombers get the win, it will come down to wise roster management movement. Sunday Survivors, on the other hand, is going to have to call a surgical team, STAT, to stop the hemorrhaging that is her team. She has all the talent of 2013, and they must find a way for players to put up the numbers they once did. For this week, I'm going with Deep Bombers. America's Game of the Week is between the Raging Falcoholics and Flip the Hooey. An amazingly even matchup. The 6th place Falcoholics has the 3rd highest points total in the league, and with a record of 3-4, not reflecting his points value. However, I like the Falcoholics matchup this week over Hooey. So I'm going to go bold, and I'm going to go out on a limb and take Falcoholics for the win. And lastly is Silverbacks versus Horsemen. I believe that Silverbacks will break their 2-game losing streak and come up with a big win this week, leading the 9th place Horsemen in the dust. That's it for It's Football Time in the Bluegrass Fantasy Football Report. I'm your host, the Commissioner. See you next week.